The jury duly impaneled and sworn for the above entitled action, upon our oaths, do find the defendant, Lori Daybell, as to the crime of count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder occurring on or about July 11, 2019, guilty.
Lori Vallow found guilty for conspiracy in the murder of her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. Thanks for joining us for Fox 10 News at 5.
We have live team coverage tonight on today's verdict, including new reaction from Charles Vallow's family. We begin with Justin Lum tonight with analysis on the verdict today. Justin.
John, Christina, what a saga it has been. We have been covering the Lori Vallow Daybell saga since December 2019. And in this trial alone, this Arizona trial against her, it took less than 10 days for this trial to conclude. And now a jury has determined that Lori Vallow Daybell is guilty of conspiring to commit murder in the death of Charles Vallow. And it took 33 seconds, as you heard there, for the verdict to be read. It took about 2.5 hours of deliberation. You add a 90-minute lunch. And we've been hearing jurors talk about this outside the courthouse, what really stood out to them. We're going to hear more about that from our team of reporters in just a moment. But the damning evidence, so much evidence was brought out by prosecutor Trina Kay with just 19 witnesses, and I compare that to the Idaho trial in 2023 when Lori Vallow Daybell was found guilty of killing her 2 children, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan, and conspiring in the murder of Tammy Daybell, which is Chad Daybell's wife. You're seeing on the screen Chad Daybell also convicted and now on death row in Idaho. So this saga has gone on for so long, and today a quick verdict. Really, I mean, we had some breaks and people were sitting on pins and needles, and we're hearing from family members who are just relieved that there is finally justice for Charles Vallow, the fourth husband of Lori Vallow Daybell, and she referred to him during this trial in closing arguments and in opening statements as her husband. But really during this time, for people who don't know, she was cheating on him with Chad Daybell. She was sending text messages to her inner circle about how he was possessed by an evil spirit named Ned. Her motive was to benefit on a $1 million life insurance policy. She was removed as the beneficiary. And right after that, murderous events took place following that in Idaho, in Rexburg, Idaho. And so this has finally come to a close, and she has one more trial in Maricopa County in June regarding her ex-nephew-in-law, Brandon Boudreaux, who was shot at by someone believed to be Alex Cox, the same shooter in this case, Lori's brother, who's now dead. Guys?
Justin, he narrowly avoided death. That bullet missed him by inches, right?
We're looking ahead now, and when you look at that evidence and the body camera footage, Brandon Boudreaux's Tesla, the window frame, was hit. Window was shattered, and he was driving into his Gilbert driveway. And because of Brandon Boudreaux, really it tipped off authorities in Idaho that all of this was happening, that J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan were missing, that Tammy Daybell had suddenly died even though she had been in good health. And so Brandon Boudreaux was a key witness in the first Idaho trial who helped authorities put this case together. And you have to remember, you had multiple law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, Rexburg Police, the Fremont County Sheriff's Office in Idaho, Kauai Police, Chandler Police, and Gilbert Police. A lot of the detectives we saw, law enforcement in this case testifying, have testified in the first trial. They know Lori Vallow Daybell. The jury is now finding out the wealth of information and the criminal history of the so-called Doomsday Mom. And I'm telling you, they are floored.
Yeah, they didn't know this stuff. So you're telling me they're being informed of this outside of the courtroom?
Well, this is all happening as they're now giving reaction, or just gave reaction to the media. They are learning about what happened to JJ and Tylee. We heard one juror say that she is definitely going to be researching and finding out more, and it's going to take one Google of the name Lori Vallow Daybell. But, you know, they have family members that have found out that they were jurors in this case. And we know the media attention that this has gotten because of how tragic and devastating it is. So when Lori Vallow Daybell stands up there and says this is a family tragedy and that it shouldn't be called a crime, really, like I told you guys earlier, she is the cause of her own tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's trying to play the victim. I mean, that's her MO, and we've seen that in her trying to defend herself in this trial, and now...
And arrogance.
Exactly.
And with no remorse, and she intends to represent herself again as her own attorney in this next trial.
Okay. Interesting.
All right, Justin, thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Moments after the verdict was read today, we heard from members of the jury and the victim's family.
Fox 10's Lauren Clark was in the courtroom. She joins us live with new reaction. Lauren, this is interesting. Justin just told us that some of these jurors are learning now outside of court, because they were shielded from this. They're learning about the other victims in the case. That has to be an absolute stunning development.
Oh, you can only imagine, right? And I'm sure there's certainly a level of relief as well, feeling pretty confident in their guilty verdict, hearing now the full picture and the full story. Some of the jurors also said that some things, they got the sense that they weren't getting all of the pieces of the puzzle. They wanted to hear from Tylee. Well, now they know why they did not hear from Tylee. But guys, after several days, hours of testimony in court, it all came down to one word: guilty. I watched those jurors walk into the room and noticed that none of them looked over at Lori Vallow Daybell when they did so. They looked straight ahead, and when that verdict was read, we could definitely just feel a sense of relief amongst some in the courtroom that day, particularly Kay Woodcock, as well as Charles' brother, Jerry. Kay and Jerry, siblings of Charles, they've been waiting 6 long years to finally get some type of closure in the death of their brother. And today, outside of the courtroom, they told us they finally got a semblance of that. Kay spoke with members of the media. She said that it was really difficult for her to listen to Lori during this whole ordeal, having Lori come up there and be her own attorney, also using phrases like "my husband," referring to Charles, which the evidence has shown that Lori hated Charles at that point and was actually trying to get him to die at that point. And also the phrase "a family tragedy," really, really irking Kay as well. She spoke to us outside of the courtroom, just really relieved of the jury's decision. Take a listen.
She was shaking like a leaf and I was like, what? No way. And it was, the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, okay, that's all I needed to know. That made my day. That of all the people she should be shaking for, and she was shaking about me, good.
Yeah, Kay also speaking to that moment that Lori briefly cross-examined her as well. You know, we have so much to break down about reaction to this. And I know Kenzie Beach is also going to talk to us more about what those jurors had to say, which I'm sure is profoundly fascinating, digging into how they viewed this case.